Have you ever had this happen to your 3D printer? Well, today I'm going to show you one of the culprits and just how easy it is to fix. It's in today's video and it's coming up next. In the heat of the moment, all right, what's up everyone? Back at it again. It is DW Darkwing Dad. Hopefully you guys had a good holiday. I am recovering from my holiday season. Recently, I had this error message pop up on my Ender 5 Plus. The thermal runaway. There's a couple different culprits that can cause this. It is a relatively easy fix, but this being the first time this happened on my Ender 5 Plus, I figured I would do a quick video just to show you guys the proper way to replace the parts, what it could be, and what it actually ended up being on my printer. Without any further ado, let's get into the video. So the first thing you want to do is go ahead and take your metal fan shroud off to gain access to all the wires. You can remove your Bowden tube if you want, just so you can have, I guess, a better play area to kind of get access to the wires. So once you have that off, you can go ahead and inspect the area. Now at first I thought the thermistor was bad, which what that is, it's a small resistor that basically detects and sends the actual temperature to the motherboard of the printer. However, it was not that. It was one of the wires was broken on the ceramic heater cartridge. You can see here that it's not attached. So that likely happened when I was swapping out Bowden tubes at one point. So very, very important. Be careful when you're doing that because that can definitely break. So to change this, you want to remove your silicone sock off of your hot end, and there's a black nut right there that you want to loosen, and it will loosen that little heater cartridge there. So go ahead and loosen that. It is good to warm it up a little bit. I warm mine up to about 100 degrees. Its metal is always better removed when it's hot than cold. If it's cold, you could de-thread it or strip it or something like that. So go ahead and loosen that little screw there. And then once that screw is off, there's some yellow heat shield tape. And go ahead and take a fresh razor blade and just take that tape off to gain better access to those two red wires. Once that screw is completely loose, just give a nice little pull on that and that ceramic cartridge will slide right out. And then very simply, you're just going to follow this red wire all the way to the back of your printer, and you're going to go ahead and remove that wire because it will no longer be needed. Now at the back end of your printer, you can see where it goes into your motherboard here. You do not need to take your motherboard apart or anything. There is basically a quick connect at the end of this, and you'll be able to swap it out that way. You can then take the heater cartridge and simply mount it on the hot end just to get it in place in preparation for removing the old wires from the heater cartridge and running the new ones down to the junction where the wires connect. You can locate this area by following the wires from the old heater cartridge down towards the motherboard that I showed you earlier, and there's a black little plug that looks just like this, and all you really have to do is go ahead and unplug it, and then you can snip the wires off and go ahead and splice them in. Make sure you do give yourself enough room though, because we want to make sure that the wire is not too short, because this wire does move a little bit as the machine is printing. Gently pull on the old wire when all the zip ties are removed, and then you can go ahead and start running your new wire down to that junction point. Then take the wires from the heater cartridge and splice and solder them into that plug that you removed earlier. It's very important that you solder these. This ensures a quality connection and there won't be any voltage variances in the line. Voltage fluctuations can result in poor performance to your hot end, false readings, and ultimately trick the motherboard into thinking another thermal runaway has occurred, and it will stop mid-print. Then you'll have to do the whole process over. So once you have it properly soldered in place, you can go ahead and heat shrink it, electrical tape it, whatever you want. Just make sure those connections are nice and clean and the wires aren't exposed. Retighten the screw on the hot end that fastens the heater cartridge in place. Once that's all good and you verified it's nice and snug, go ahead and turn your machine on and preheat the hot end to make sure that the heating element is working properly and warming the hot end to the proper temperature. You notice the temperature start to increase just like it did before, and luckily for me, I had a piece of filament stuck in the hot end, so I was able to verify that it was heating up properly because the filament slid right out once I got up to 200 degrees. Next, cool your machine down so you can go ahead and reinstall that high temperature tape that is going to go around your thermistor and your heater cartridge. This is very important because both of these wires are right next to that hot end, so obviously this is going to be subdued to hours and hours of heat, so this acts as a blanket so that there's no damage done to these wires from the hot end. Once you have the tape installed, again, go ahead and double check your work. Go ahead and reheat the hot end just to make sure nothing came loose and everything is working properly. At this point, I like to go ahead and put the silicone boot back around the hot end of the nozzle. Once it reaches to around 200 degrees or higher, I will go ahead and reinstall my Capricorn tube and begin the assembling process. This includes reinstalling the fan shroud, the BL touch, and everything that we need, and making sure all those screws are tightly secured in place, and that we can go ahead and test and run some filament through here and make sure everything's working properly. Lastly, grab some zip ties and make sure everything is secured and fastened in place. Once that's all set, go ahead and grab some filament and run it through your hot end just to ensure that everything is extruding and looking properly. Once everything looks good, go ahead and do a test print, or in my case, a 63-hour print of a Dr. Doom mask, which I am very happy to report came out absolutely awesome. So the heater cartridge replacement was successful, and you can see here that the printer is back and operating like new again. There you have it, guys. A pretty straightforward tutorial there on how to replace your heater cartridge. This is a piece that is and can wear out over time. I think a little bit of it had to do with me upgrading my fans and constantly taking that shroud off, doing things like replacing my Bowden tube with a Capricorn tube, and it might have just hit that contact, loosened it a little bit. But I could tell that there was something weird going on because I just had some impurities and some imperfections, just not consistent printing that to me was temperature related. I thought it was a clog, and turned out that that contact had gotten a little bit loose, so the temperatures were fluctuating. Again, doing things like PID tuning can always help too, so I always recommend doing that. At first I thought it was the thermistor because that's such a often part that breaks. It's more or less just a little resistor in that white wire there. Oftentimes it just pops and it fries, causes the unit to fail, but it wasn't. But trust me, when mine does go, I will be sure to have an install video, show you guys how to do that as well. One very important takeaway from this is too, when you are installing that heater cartridge, make sure to solder your connections. Again, if the connector on the existing harness and then the new heater cartridge you wire in doesn't have a nice clean connection there with some solder, you could get variance and fluctuation within that hot end, and it can make the temperature go up or down. And again, you'll just have issues. You may have to replace the whole heater cartridge, put a new one in. So make sure you solder that connection, get it nice and clean, and you'll be good to go. Hope you guys liked this video. If you did, go ahead and give me a thumbs up. If you like what you're seeing and you like all things 3D printing, cosplay, Marvel, we have a lot of that here on this channel. Go ahead and click that subscribe button. I got a lot more new things coming for you in the new year. I want to thank each and every one of you for watching. You guys have a safe and happy new year. And until 2023, it's DW signing off. Later.